Recording with Miss Lucia Sinatra on Tuesday, March 14th. That's a badass name, by the way. On Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 5:35 p.m. Eastern time. And again, always, guys, if you want to support the show, there's a little red button on Rumble. Locals, press it. You can support it for like a couple bucks a month. Exclusive content, blah, blah, blah. Support the show. Keep it independent. Miss Sinatra, you were recommended to me by Dr. McCullough, and he actually introduced me, I guess, verbally to you on my last show with him, and he said, "Isn't that a great name?" And I said, "It's a fantastic name," and but that's about the ceiling of my professional understanding of you, and it's always. I never know if it's good or bad when people are like, "I've watched your show." I always kind of step back and I'm like, I don't know whether they're about to say it's great or they want to punch me, but you seem to be in the former category. So could you please introduce yourself and tell everyone kind of what you're doing with the mandates?
Yes, I would love to. So thanks so much for having me today. My name is Lucia Sinatra.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn it.
Lucia, no worries, no worries. I knew you wouldn't take it too harshly because you're so chill and so casual. And one of the things that I love about your podcast. So I knew I could say that.
Okay.
I might have avoided it if this were a little more formal.
Okay.
Um, but in any event, I am a mom of two college students. I started no college mandates about a year and a half ago. When colleges decided to mandate COVID-19 vaccines, I kept a very close eye on the reasons why. They never really had reasons why. They said, this is the way we believe is the best to protect our community. But as you know, as data rolled out, we very soon after colleges announced their primary series vaccine COVID-19 vaccine mandates, we learned very soon after that these COVID-19 vaccine mandates don't prevent um, um, infection and they don't prevent transmission. So how do they protect the community if they don't prevent you from giving me COVID and me from giving you COVID, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated? So I actually thought naively they would catch up to the science. I was like, okay, you know what? They made a mistake. They're going to admit it, and these things are going to go away. Not even close. As a matter of fact, so at that time, there were well over 1,000 colleges mandating COVID-19 vaccines. This was spring into summer of 2021. By December of 2021, 325 of those colleges mandated a booster on top of it. At this point, we have had so much more data on the fact that these vaccines are not working the way that they were designed to work. And you cannot force a college student to take a vaccine to protect his or her own health. It has to be a choice. There has to be informed consent, and there has to be medical freedom. If those vaccines are not preventing their 80-year-old or 70-year-old faculty or staff members from getting COVID-19, then vaccine mandates become illegal. They're no longer legal. Has that stopped colleges from mandating them? No, it hasn't. So we've had some shifts. We've had a number of colleges drop primary series and booster mandates, but then we've had colleges go in the exact opposite direction. We have 21 colleges that have announced they would mandate the bivalent booster. Now, what this means is there is no monovalent booster anymore. So if you're an incoming freshman, you're required to have the primary series and one booster, which is the bivalent. However, if you are an upperclassman and you've already taken a monovalent booster, this means you need two boosters to stay enrolled in your college community. So some of these kids are up to 4 vaccines if you're a domestic student. If you're an international student, you can have anywhere from 6 to 8 vaccines if you've gotten vaccines in your home country that are not recognized by the colleges. Then you have to repeat those vaccines when you get here.
Good Lord in heaven. I mean, I'm with you in that I think everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt early on. I mean, I was as guilty as anyone of thinking this was the end of the world. I get it. Is it a bioweapon? Well, yeah, spoiler that it is. But is it a bioweapon? Did it really just come from a bat and a pangolin getting it on? Like, I get it. And the vaccines are rushed and okay, but I get the general vibe, the same reason that the Patriot Act was uh made able to be pushed through the government right after 9/11. It's downtown Manhattan's a smoking mess. The Pentagon's on fire. I get it. You never let a good crisis go to waste, and it's not always cynical. Sometimes there is reason behind it, right? FDR enacting the War Powers, or the War Powers Production Act, or whatever it was, right after we got bombed at Pearl Harbor. Like, there is precedent, and it's not always nefarious. But
Right.
as it went forward, and it was kind of shown that these aren't effective, and they don't stop transmission, then they stop 95%, and then they stopped 80%, and it's about 50%, and then it's like, you're probably gonna have a heart attack. Like, it's just gonna went lower and lower and lower, and then it's like, yeah, you might have AIDS. Like, it was a very slippery slope to a vertical drop off. What is then, not that you have the answer or that I have the answer, what is the reasoning behind it? Is it people, are they still fearful? Is it groupthink? We just have to trust the doctor in the white coat, or is it? I mean, are there incentives? Are there bribes? Are we, we all assumed Twitter was in bed with the government. It took several years, but now we're getting the actual documents that show there is FBI, CIA, DIA, DHS collusion. Is this something where in 2026 or 2030 we're going to have the university files, and we show that top deans whatever took whatever stocks from Pfizer or something? Not that you have the answer, but what is the rationale?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it's all of the above. I've been asking this question since the day I started this mission. What is it? What's driving this? So, as you would imagine, the more elite the college, the more NIH grant funding that they get. So it could be very much driven by NIH grants. NIH grants are nothing new, right? NIH grants have been around, for decades and decades. I mean, this is how college and university professors and scientists fund their research. However, if you look at the increase, University of Michigan, I think in the last couple of years, and they're one of the universities that just mandated the bivalent booster. Tommy, students have to take the bivalent booster by May 15th in order to enroll for fall of 2023. Months away, right? So take a vaccine in May to go back to school, maybe beginning of September. If there's any efficacy whatsoever, and if the variant is still even around by then, how does it make sense that you're mandating incoming freshmen or any student that's going to live on campus to take a vaccine potentially 3 full months before they're actually going to even be on campus? What's the driving factor there? So their NIH grants over the last 2 years have increased anywhere from 10 to 15%. There are faculty and staff that are incredibly still fearful for their health and safety. I get faculty and I get deans calling me all the time, and they're saying, don't blame this all on NIH grants. We get some grants, but we don't get a ton of federal funding from the NIH, yet we have vaccine mandates because we have a fearful faculty. Then I get faculty members calling me saying, don't blame it on us. It's the unions at the public university and public college systems. The unions are fearful for their health and safety. The unions are they're throwing around their weight and their power, and they want these mandates to remain in place. And then I've got other, small liberal arts colleges calling me and saying, we do what Rutgers does. We're in the state of New Jersey. We get almost no federal funding. But Rutgers mandated the vaccine. They're the largest R1 research institution in the state of New Jersey. So they must know something we don't know. They're conducting clinical trials for all 3 big pharma companies. And so if they're mandating this, they must have inside information on the safety of these vaccines, the dangers of the virus, and we're just going to do what they do. So I think it's a multifaceted, sort of answer. And I don't think there's a one size fits all answer, just like there's not a one size fits all COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also makes me think, and I've been thinking this throughout the entire pandemic, is that what we're seeing isn't new. Like, it's startling to see the level of corruption and capture of these institutions, but now it's kind of dawning. Like, I always use this analogy. The first time I got caught drinking when I was 18, and I tried to tell my parents, "Oh, this is the first time I've ever drank," right? And it's like, how fucking dumb do you think I am? Like, like you think I wasn't 18, at one point? No, of course, it's the first time I got caught, which then leads you to conclude, like, you've been doing this before. I think this has probably been the MO for decades. And it's just either the advent of social media and the, I guess, virulence of emails and digital copies as opposed to paper documents in like the 70s or 50s. And we're just uncovering it more now. This has probably been going on since these institutions were founded. And thus, that also might explain why they're so brazen to continue to do it, is they've been getting away with drinking every weekend at their buddy's house for the last year. And now they're getting caught and they don't know what to do.
Right.
Is there any, again, not that you have the answer or a crystal ball, is there any validity to that?
Well, I think if we look at where these mandates are coming from, it's coming from the college administration, right? The college COVID teams or health and wellness teams or whatever you want to call it, you know. And I think if you look back on the history of college students and I haven't studied this a whole lot, I really immersed myself in this whole battle, it specifically related to COVID-19 vaccines in this pandemic. But college students are captive and easily manipulated audience. They have been the subject of science experiments for decades, decades. Colleges have sold their data. Colleges have used their data. Colleges have rolled out treatments. They've rolled out different types of healthcare measures on college campuses, all because it is so easy to do. Once you're on a college campus and you've paid your tuition, you're now captive to the institution that owns your future. And I think it's one of the reasons these mandates persist on college campuses. I think it is very easy to manipulate and to control this young adult population because let's face it, they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of tuition on the line, and they've got their dreams on the line. So it's either you do what we say, or go find somewhere else to go, or we'll blow up your dream. End of story. And some of these colleges have been unreal. When vaccine mandates rolled out, and of course we started making a lot of noise, and other parents and a few students here and there, a lot of the feedback we got from the other side of the aisle was, well, just transfer, leave the school. It's not that easy. There are kids that have sunk in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in education, in tuition dollars. They won't get those back. There are some colleges that said, we will not release your transcripts until you comply with the COVID-19 vaccine requirement, or until you comply with the booster requirement. We will lock you out of your online platforms, so you can't access your classes, you can't access your grades. There are some horrific things that have been done to college students. Some of them are in such specialized programs that if they were to transfer, they couldn't even find a program that would be a match or an equal to the program that they're in, or a program that would accept all of their credits. So just saying as easy as go somewhere else, transfer, drop out, it's a much bigger ask than I think people, think about at first glance. There are a lot of factors involved. I think for some kids, it is an easier decision. I know tons of kids who have dropped out of school. I know kids who have dropped out for a year, transferred. I know kids who have dropped out for a year and then a year later applied for an exemption, got that exemption approved, and went back to the horrific school that they were at, that forced them to leave in the first place, because in that first year they wouldn't accept exemptions. So, it's really individual dependent. I don't think we can judge anybody for their decisions on whether they stay at an institution, drop out of an institution, transfer from an institution. It's a very individual decision.
Yeah. And as much as I kind of cast aside or make fun of, I do need to be more empathetic in that I was in college from 2009 to 2013. I had a pretty broad major, biology pre-med, and I transferred from Valdosta State University to the University of Georgia. That was within the same state without missing any time in between, no gap period where I had to say, explain the missing time. Perfect grades, no criminal record, And even then, it was still a headache and a half
Wow.
with no pandemic, no taking time off, no exemptions, no, we're not going to release your scores. I mean,
Wow.
I probably had it as easy as anyone could have it, and it was still a total pain in the ass. So I guess I do need to be a little more open hearted to the idea of I was so hell bent on getting into medical school. If someone told me, you're no longer allowed to wear socks, I would have been like, fuck socks, like, yeah, whatever. I'm getting into medical school. And it's like, it's easy for me to say it now. I'm 32 and completely independent of that. But I mean, then yeah, they hold your future in a vice grip. Do you want to go to medical school or engineering school, or do you want to, go to the Naval Academy or Air Force Academy? You got to get a letter of recommendation from your state senator, and if you're smoking weed, we're going to kick you out, and any one reason we're going to kick you out, and we're not going to release your transcripts. I mean, again, it was hard to get transcripts released just because of the fact there was like 30,000 kids at my school, regardless of if I was bucking the system.
Right.
It's I think it is very easy for me to look at them and say, "Oh, you shouldn't do it." Like, okay, take a year off and then get an exemption. The hell are you doing that year off?
Right.
You know? Okay, I
Right.
had parents that probably would have let me come home if this was the period. What if you're completely screwed and you're putting yourself through school and you're working at Waffle House?
Right.
You're probably just going to say, there's less than a 1% chance I'm going to have a heart attack. Yeah, whatever. Just give me the jab.
Right. Right. I think you're right. I think you kind of hit on something there. I think it's very hard for us to quantify how many students believe that they need these vaccines for their health and wellness, how many students took them just so they could go back to a normal life at college without disruption, without judgment, without being ostracized in the community, and how many students are against the vaccines. And those are the ones that filed for mandates or dropped out or did everything they could not to take them. And I think that middle category is much bigger than I initially thought when we started this mission. And I do think it's getting bigger and bigger. The more the data comes out on the dangers of continued vaccination, the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccines for this, largely young, healthy adult population. If we could only get that middle group to activate and push back against the colleges, I think we'd have a real fight on our hands.
So in your time, fighting against this, what is the most realistic or I guess path of least resistance for college students who want to, who have the crazy idea of not wanting to take an experimental vaccine and still receive an education? What
Yep.
can they
So
actually do?
yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question. So we have a website, nocollegemandates.com, and on the homepage of our website are two extremely important lists. There is one list of colleges, it is over 500 colleges that never mandated COVID-19 vaccines. There are caveats to this list, however. Some of these colleges would have mandated COVID-19 vaccines if they were not headquartered in the states which expressly prohibit COVID-19 vaccine mandates. So Texas, for example, if Baylor University could have mandated COVID-19 vaccines, they would have, but they are prevented from executive order in the state of Texas from doing so. Same with University of Virginia. At one time, they did mandate COVID-19 vaccines, but as soon as Governor Youngkin signed the executive order saying that Virginia public universities could no longer mandate these vaccines, they had to get rid of the mandate, meaning they changed it from a mandate to we recommend. That means you can do whatever you want. You don't have to show compliance anymore. You don't have to comply. Basically, it's your choice. The other list that we have is a much larger and more comprehensive list. And it's a list of which institutions mandate COVID-19 vaccines. And so what we have on there is we have the colleges that do mandate, how many they mandate, if they have dropped COVID-19 vaccines, vaccine mandates, when did they drop them? We have links to the web pages so you can review the policy yourself. So that way you're guided in your decision on where you want to go. There are people that write me every day and say, I'm not going to look at the which institutions mandated COVID-19 vaccines. I can never trust those institutions again. What if they do this with the next pandemic? What if they go back because all of a sudden we have a new variant? What if they take that recommendation and make it a mandate again? And then there are other people that say, look, it's my kid's dream to go to this school that either mandates, so I'm gonna let them apply and get them an exemption, or they mandated at one time, so I need to trust that they're never going to do it again. And that's the reason for the two lists. It really depends on what you trust and what you're looking for. And the whole reason we created these lists is to give parents and students a roadmap, to give them ideas, and to give them, sort of a place to start when they start looking for where they want to apply to colleges. I promote that list of colleges that never mandated vaccines quite a bit. There are 21 colleges on that list that take zero federal funding dollars. They don't take NIH grants. They don't participate in federal funding or federal student loan programs. In other words, they are 100% autonomous to run their colleges and universities as they see fit. In my dream world, these are the 21 colleges that we send every kid that wants a higher education degree to. These are the colleges we prop up. These are the colleges we model to build future colleges. These are the colleges we put all of our efforts into growing. So when alumni write me and say, what do I do? I don't want to donate to my school anymore. Then I say, here's a list of 21 colleges. Go see what they're doing. See what resonates with you. Support them financially. Find a way to build these schools up, because they're the ones that get the true model of independent learning and higher education.
Have those 21 schools, do you know, have they received any, I guess, lashing from the government or withholding of federal funding? Have they seen any sort of disciplinary action?
None.
None.
Now, it is 100% their choice. They're all private institutions, so they can choose as they see fit to say, no, we don't want your federal dollars. And by the way, you're also not going to tell us what we can do.
That's awesome.
It's really,
Yeah, it's really badass. Have there been, what about students? Have you, are you involved with any students who have been injured by these?
yes.
And do they get any, do they take it up with the university? Are they, or is it, are they just kind of shit out of luck?
It's a great question. We're working on that. So we started this effort, trying to save as many college students as we could save who didn't want these vaccines. So we help facilitate thousands upon thousands of vaccine exemptions, medical, religious. After that, we turned our attention to letter writing campaigns, phone campaigns, petitions, Align Acts. The colleges barely responded to us as if we didn't exist. And we got MDs involved, we got lawyers involved. They wouldn't respond to any of us. Their policy is their policy. And they, according to them, they're following CDC guidelines and they're protecting the community. And they will answer no questions as to why, who, or how these decisions are being made. Then we said, it's time to pull out the big guns. So we are working on, we are speaking to congressmen and congresswomen to work on legislation to prevent colleges who receive federal funding from mandating COVID-19 vaccines or any vaccine that is inadequately tested and is showing to be ineffective. And we're facilitating lawsuits for injured students and for families of students that have died as a direct result of COVID-19 vaccines.
And I know you touched on this earlier, but if you could refresh me, or in which states? So you said the 21 schools are, these are private institutions.
Yeah.
Which are the public institutions that are, have any of them kind of stood their ground or no?
The public institutions, so it varies, because the public institutions in those states that don't allow them to mandate COVID-19 vaccines can't. There are, in California, New York, the large majority, like the UC system, the SUNY system in the city of New York, the CUNY system, they all have vaccine mandates on the books, and they, and they're doing that. They say largely in consultation with CDC guidelines and state public health guidelines. And we're not seeing those budge, those large state systems in California and New York. However, in Illinois, we've seen their large state college system drop COVID-19 vaccine mandates. And, Illinois is a blue state. So why did they drop, COVID-19 vaccines? It could be pressure from the community. It could be pressure, from politicians. It could be bad publicity. We've been riding these blue states really hard, to show us the data and the science upon which they base these mandates. So it could be a number of things for why there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason, and we never know who's going to drop mandates and when it's going to happen. Michigan State University just dropped COVID-19 vaccine mandates, but University of Michigan continues to mandate them. So mandated the bivalent booster, as I said earlier, for students in 2023 who are going to be living on campus at Ann Arbor. So if you're a commuter, you do not need the bivalent booster mandate. If you're faculty and staff, I think the mandate varies. But if you are an incoming freshman who wants to live on campus, because I guess that's the only place the virus lives is in dorms, then you need to get a bivalent booster.
I'm sorry if you already answered this. When did you start all of this? When did you kind of start the whole fighting for this or fighting against this?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Right around the announcement of the booster mandates.
Okay, it's March 2023. I get that, 1 million Americans died, 7 million people worldwide. I get it. I'm not making light of those. It's terrible. It is a Chinese bioweapon, and it is an act of war, but that's another tirade for another time that I've gone on enough times, and my blood pressure gets going. The average person is surviving it just fine. At a certain point, I don't know if I can buy their argument that it's still fear-based. Like it's over. Like we're done playing with pandemic. Like the new hot thing is the war, right? Or trains derailing or banks collapsing. Pandemics, it's not in style anymore. Like I know I'm making light of it, but like it's over. Like
right.
There's got to be. I don't believe that. I think there are still some psychotic people. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe if I'd lost a family member, I'd be a little more empathetic. I get that. And if you want a glimpse to it, just look up the hashtag COVID is not over. I mean, if you want, I feel bad for them. People wrapped in, they look like mummies. They're in like hazmat suits in the airport. And it's like, bro, it's March 2023. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Is it really just fear? Maybe it's my tinfoil mind, but at this point, I'm like, someone's making money. Someone's making money, or there's funding, or there's something, or it's a revolving door. You're going to leave Duke or Harvard and you're going to get a job at the NIH or the NIAID, or I'm just thinking aloud now. I'm not sure if I buy the fear thing. Not saying I don't believe you. I don't believe them.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, there was a professor website, University of Berkeley professors. I think they probably since taken it down. I'm not sure. I actually haven't looked in a while, but they put up a website, faculty in support of mandates, mask mandates, shot mandates, and they had no coherent reasons, but they basically just wanted to build a website so all these faculty could sign on board, and they could show the University of California how important it was for their health and safety to have these mandates in place. I think it's a mental health issue at this point. I don't know what else it could be. I mean, I think there's a large amount of instability. And we think about it at the college level, it's an absolutely frightening thought, because these are the people that are teaching our future leaders, right? These are the people that are teaching our students, and they refuse to discuss or debate the science upon which their requirements lie. I really naively underestimated academia to think that these are some of our most highly functioning, most intelligent, people and humans in the population, certainly they'll have some data and science to support, these mandates, and to support the what they're doing to college students. And you never get any of that. You get a lot of ad hominem attacks. You get a lot of you're crazy. This is college students can choose where they want to go to school if they don't want to be subject to our rules. You get a lot of, there have always been other types of vaccine mandates, for polio and MMR. It's not even close to the same thing. To develop a vaccine schedule, although another conversation for another day, is the doubt thrown into all of the vaccines on the vaccine schedule after seeing, after uncovering, the shoddy clinical trials that went in to approving these vaccines. When you do some deep dive work and you read turtles all the way down, you realize there may be not a single vaccine on the market that has ever been adequately tested or put through proper and rigorous clinical trials. And it's absolutely frightening. So I think it's some of that too, right? These college administrators think, well, we mandate these other 10, 12, 15 vaccines. We're just going to slap it on there
Sure.
because we can do whatever we want. And it's our rules if you want to come to our institution. And it's just not that easy to admit they were wrong about any of this. It's not that easy for them to say, and there are a few, rare professors, doctors, PhDs who have come forward and said, you know what, we made a mistake. And the more we learn, the more we realize we need to flip sides and get on the mission of ending the distribution of these vaccines, as opposed to pushing them, and especially on young, healthy adult populations and the very, very young. So, I think it's an attitude problem. I think it's a lot of, we can do whatever we want. It's our rules if you want to come here. And they're not doing the research into the injuries, the adverse events, the side effects, the deaths. I can tell you that some universities know about myocarditis, pericarditis in healthy young men and in athletes. And they have told me indirectly through my inside sources that we know what's going on. But this is a political decision. And if you think you're going to win, and you're going to get us to reverse vaccine mandates, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. I think if there is a reason for, and I know I've kept you longer than I said I'd keep you. If there is going to be a thing that pushes back on it, I imagine it will probably be something like the University of Georgia or something akin to that, a giant school with a football program larger than life. I mean, that thing controls campus, or think like Alabama or anywhere Texas, or basketball programs or whatever. It'll be something like that when a star QB freshman coming in, he's gonna guaranteed championship, and they drop dead. That is sadly probably gonna be the thing that changes it. Not anyone else, not students talking about, bodily autonomy or coercion, or, the same people that historically protest, like Occupy Wall Street, are now shilling for Pfizer, which is just the weirdest mental gymnastic I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I guess shout out to the CIA. Their propaganda is on point, game, respect, game, but like, it's probably going to be when some star athlete drops dead, and it's going to be a bunch of people in Georgia going, okay, well, we were guaranteed a championship. And it's sad, but that's probably what I imagine it would be.
As frightening as it is, and as awful as it is to talk about, I think you're right. I don't think these colleges have seen enough injury. They haven't seen enough destruction on their particular campuses from these mandates. What's interesting, we also wrote to the NCAA. We wrote several letters to try to engage them, because there was no college student athlete vaccine mandate that came down from the NCAA, right? That's school dependent. So if you're a student athlete in at a public school in New Hampshire, or Virginia or Texas or Georgia, where they're not allowed to mandate COVID-19 vaccines. So any state school cannot have a COVID-19 vaccine mandate. But if you are at a private school in one of those states, there might be a COVID-19 vaccine mandate. So depending on where you are an athlete depends on whether you're going to be forced to take these vaccines or not. But what happened is there was so much pressure on student athletes by the coaches to say, you need to take these vaccines or you're not going to play. You're going to go from first string to second string. You're putting the entire team, you're jeopardizing all of us, you're putting us in harm's way. So the level of pressure on student athletes was some of the greatest pressure of all student vaccine mandates. If these coaches found out that kids had exemptions, like at the UC schools, for example, they retaliated against these student athletes like you would not believe, telling these students, you have an exemption, you're putting us at risk, therefore you're not going to play in the next 10 tennis matches. I mean, they could take a kid's whole entire season away. And this was all stuff that was going on behind the scenes, right? Because the college had a mandate, the college approved the exemption. But if the coach found out, and then the coach was getting pressure from the NCAA to have all of the athletes vaccinated, then there was just all this whole other layer that they had to contend with, being student athletes. And they're the ones most at risk for adverse heart reactions, adverse heart events. And we've seen it, sadly, it doesn't get greatly publicized, but since student athletes have started taking these vaccines at colleges, there have been a number of deaths. It's so hard, again, to quantify and collect all of the information that comes out, because sometimes the only places that these articles are written are in the school newspaper. It's very rare that they give the cause of death. They quite often say, we're going to follow up with a new article when we have more information on cause of death, and then they never follow up with the article. Sometimes it appears in local newspapers. If you're in a college town, the local town newspaper will sometimes report the death. Once again, very rarely do they come up with a cause of death. And they quite often say, we'll follow up when we have more information, and nobody follows up. So you need an incredible amount of time to dive through college newspapers, college towns, obituary columns, to basically paint the picture of how many college students have died as a result of college COVID-19 vaccine mandates. And that doesn't even touch on those that have been injured. So that would then require you to go, through the VAERS data, the VSafe data, and pull out all of the students that are college age, what adverse reactions they had, were they forced, and then go back and backtrack and compare against our list. Did those colleges have mandates? How many boosts? How many did they mandate? How many shots did they mandate? Did this student take vaccines? If so, how many? What's the proximity of the injury or death to the last vaccine? I mean, it could take months and months, if not years, to collect the data, even going state by state and collecting death data from the state. That's not publicly available in every state. So I live in California. I can request, the last 3 to 5 years of death data for the state of California. But imagine those records that I'm going to get. And then you've got to go through all of that death data and pull out the college students, and then do a cross-reference to maybe the state or local college that they went to, compare it against the vaccine mandates, compare it against the proximity to when they took the vaccines. None of that is publicly available. If a college student in a state took, and death records don't give vaccination status. I believe, I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. So then how do we get the vaccine status data, right? So it's just an incredibly tangled web of information, and we keep up with it through our really strong parent community. We have a strong parent community on Telegram. We're active on Twitter, and that's how we communicate with each other. Email, Substack, and we bring to awareness what's going on at our kids' colleges, so we can stay up to date on injuries, deaths, adverse events, and then we do the research on the changing of the mandates, whether they drop, whether they add more shots to their mandate, their vaccine mandate requirements. So it's an incredible amount of work. What is the most devastating about it is I think so few people are aware of how many injuries and deaths there have been as a result of these college vaccine mandates. And I just can't help but wonder if they were aware of what was going on, because mainstream media, put it on TV. Would we have more public outcry? Would we have more backlash? And I really got to believe that we would. And it's being suppressed, and it's a hard thing to come to terms with. It's really devastating. There are some college campuses. I mean, I think there's a North Carolina, is it North Carolina State? They've had 8 deaths just in the spring 2023 semester. 8. I think the large majority of them are suicide. However, there are people in the community that are saying, we think the pressures of lockdown, the pressures of vaccine mandates, and potentially even what's in the vaccines themselves could lead to suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts are on the rise. I think it's 1 in 4 teenage girls have contemplated suicide in the last few years. Those numbers are devastatingly high, and on the rise. So you're seeing some colleges that have never seen this level of suicides on their campus. WPI in Massachusetts is another one. In the last 15 years, they've had a total of 7 suicides. In the last year to year and a half, so last 15 years, a total of 2 suicides. In the last year to year and a half, 7 suicides. There's got to be some correlation here. Correlation does not equal causation. However, does it not require investigation? Does it not require at least looking in to why we're having, students, and then at other young students are having heart attacks. Young students are dying suddenly and unexpectedly. Young students are having strokes. Why are the colleges not investigating this? They know that this is not normal. We can look back on years and years of enrollment in college, communities, and not see this level of heart attacks, or what is a sudden and unexpected death? What is a medical emergency? A new term that colleges are using and reporting in their school newspapers. He died of a medical emergency. What does that mean? What does that mean? And why are you not investigating? And then of course there's the families, right? Because it does come down to the families as well. They have to ask for the autopsy. They have to ask questions. They have to demand to see what the results of the autopsy were. Were there blood clots? There have to be more answers to what led to the untimely deaths of some of these students, and nobody's asking the questions.
You are frighteningly well versed on this. And I mean that as a compliment. I mean that in the best possible way. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, Christ Almighty, I wouldn't want to argue against you. Like, good Lord. But
Thank you. I've made it my job. I've made it my job in the last year and a half, and we're dealing with the lives of young adults who are being forced and manipulated and coerced into doing things they don't want to do. I have 2 young adults myself. It's a personal mission for me, and I've made it my job to let people know just how horrid and unconscionable the situation is.
I think for me, it's kind of silly, but there's like a huge component of it, which is just my own ego, where I'm like, I know I know this is all bad. I know just it's nothing new. It's corporate greed. It's covering things up. It's medical atrocities. And I know it's all going to come out, and it might be 2 years. It might be 100 years. Like they're just now finding those schools in Canada where there's like mass graves of indigenous kids, but it's from like the 1880s. Like it might take a century and a half.
Right.
I know it's coming out.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be on the bad side of the textbook. I don't want to be part of the idiot who's, writes like a 10-page article on why only morons think the world is round, or like, the people ridiculing Joseph Lister because he advised soldiers to not pack their wounds with mud.
Right.
I guess that's my own ego. Like above all, I'd like to think it's morality or intellectual prowess, but it's instead I'm just like, I just don't want to look like a jackass.
Right.
I don't know, man. Maybe that's the driving force behind it. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I think it is the driving force behind a lot of what's happening with college and college administrators. They already look like jackasses, and if they go back and say, "Hey, we screwed up. We were wrong. So all those shots you took, you know what? You didn't really need them." We're never going to see that. What we are going to see, in my opinion, is, and we are already seeing it, is we did such a good job getting rid of COVID-19 on our campus that we can now get rid of COVID-19 vaccine mandates. But it's because we were so diligent, and 99% of our college community is vaccinated. And because of that, it can all go away. So it's not going to be a mistake. It's going to be, look how great we are.
Oh, sure. It'll be that in like the quote unquote near term for the next couple of years.
Right.
But the big picture,
Yeah.
like an acid, the truth always just dissolves all barriers around it. It doesn't care. It's indifferent.
Yep.
And I think there's also, it's like seeing a friend get too drunk and act like an asshole, and then you get too drunk and your friend's like, you were being an asshole last night. You're like, you almost can't comprehend it. You're like, I would never be that guy. But in fact, you were that guy. Like you threw up in someone's car.
That's right.
I think it's the same thing. Is there's a lot of people who look back in history and look at the atrocities committed by governments or corrupt institutions, and they can't possibly imagine that you might have had a hand in a low-key genocide of college students in 2023. It's not a
Right.
black and white photo of concentration camps. It's
Right.
2023 with iPhones and, Teslas.
Right.
I think that's probably part of it, is you're looking at it and going, but that was me. And there's probably just a cognitive break, I would imagine. I don't know.
Right. No, I think you're right. I think it's an interesting analogy. It's, I would never be that dumb. I would never act that way. And it's a cognitive dissonance thing. It's, I can't come to terms with the fact, that I'm an expert in my field. I'm an expert scientist. I'm an expert researcher. I'm one of the world's top cardiologists. Yet I could not see the dangers of these vaccines. I think it would be so devastating that they just block out the realization instead of coming to terms with it.
Yeah, and like I can't even say that I wouldn't. Well, I can because I didn't, but like I do see it. I do.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I remember when we were in college, you could buy something, and then I'll let you go. I know I said I'd keep you for 30 minutes. It's been an hour. I
No
remember in
worries.
college in Georgia, you could buy something called spice, and it was synthetic weed, but you couldn't buy weed, but you could buy spice. And we would buy it, and our parents, who, we all went to private Catholic school, so of course we always criticize our parents for, being helicopter parents. And I remember me and my friend's mom was like, "You can't smoke that; it's dangerous." And we were just like rolling our eyes. We're like, they're just angry at everything. And now, like, we have to look back, and spice is now banned because it was causing like seizures and aneurysms. And there is that moment of humbling when you're like, "Mom was right." And like when you're 21, that's the last thing you want to admit. That's You'd rather walk off the plank into shark infested waters. But on
Right.
like a microcosm, there's that moment of like, oh, we were wrong. And
Right.
I guess I get it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you very much define the college student. They're invincible, right?
yeah,
They don't think about the consequences of taking a vaccine. They're like, wow, I'm just going to do it
You just
because
drank a gallon of vodka on a Monday night. I can do anything. What do I care?
they're invincible. They're not, they're going to be totally fine. And, and I do worry about the day that they wake up and potentially have a lot of vaccine regret and potentially realize what they were forced to do, and that they sort of succumbed to the pressure or didn't fight back against it, didn't take the time to decide whether they needed it, or whether they could have avoided it if they incur some sort of health issue. I do worry about that a little bit, not only with college students, with a lot of people who took the vaccine. I see a lot of vaccine regret every single day, and I think that could get exponentially worse.
Yeah, I mean, there were mornings I literally woke up having lost my wallet, phone missing, like a bloody nose, a chipped tooth, and just been like, well, I'm just gone to class and been like, that's just the way it goes. And I looked back now and I'm like, how am I not 6 feet under? Like dearly missed UGA alum. So I guess, yeah, you're invincible. No, you're not. No,
Yeah,
you're
no,
absolutely not.
yeah.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to touch on?
No, I think if you will allow me, I'll just repeat our website. You can connect with me there. So we're nocollegemandates.com. I can be reached via email there. All my socials are there. Our active Telegram group is there. You can connect to our Substack, which we call our newsletter. I don't get to post and write as often as I would like because I'm too busy fighting colleges, but all my podcasts are there. Our letter efforts are petitions, Align Acts, basically everything we've done over the year and a half. A lot of it is captured there, so you can learn more about the work we do. And if nothing else, if you have parents of college students, I hope they access our lists in order to help their students make the best choices for a future college. And if you have college alumni that are listening, if your colleges mandate vaccines, stop giving to those colleges and find the ones that don't.
Thank you so much, and I'll email you the link to this, and we'll shamelessly ask you to plug it on your social media and websites and all that good stuff.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Lucia, not Lucia, Lucia Sinatra. Thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you for your patience with me and my foul language. And yeah, thank you for just doling out the knowledge. That was awesome.
Thanks, Tommy. Really appreciate it. I had fun today. Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.